You won't believe what Will Smith did that forever changed this mother's life. Stay until the end to discover how a simple act of kindness can transform destinies. If this story touches your heart, leave a like and subscribe for more inspiring content like this. The scorching Los Angeles sun seemed to mock Maria Gonzalez as she counted the coins in her worn wallet. Her fingers trembled. $23.42. The grocery bill totaled nearly $60. Behind her, her 4-year-old twins, Miguel and Sofia, watched with curious eyes, oblivious to the humiliation their mother was facing. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the cashier, an impatient young man who was eyeing the growing line behind her. "I'll have to return some items." Maria's heart sank as she began to set aside products. First, the chicken protein her children desperately needed. Then, the fresh fruits they rarely could afford. Finally, with tears in her eyes, she pushed away the small birthday cake decorated with colorful toy cars, the surprise gift she had planned for the twins' birthday the next day. "Mommy, why are you putting the cake back?" asked Sofia, her big brown eyes shining with disappointment. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We'll make something special at home," Maria replied, swallowing the lump in her throat. It was at that moment that a familiar voice sounded behind her. "Don't worry about that. You can ring up everything." Maria turned around, confused, and her heart nearly stopped. There, in a simple t-shirt and baseball cap, stood Will Smith, smiling with that characteristic smile that lit up movie screens around the world. "Mr. Smith, I can't accept," stammered Maria, mortified. "Please, I insist," said Will, already passing his card to the slack-jawed cashier. "And please add that cake back. Looks like we have a birthday to celebrate." Maria's eyes filled with tears as she watched her children jumping for joy at recognizing the man from the Alien movie they had watched so many times on the small television in their apartment. But what Will Smith did next went far beyond paying a grocery bill. While loading the groceries into Maria's worn-out car in the parking lot, Will noticed the housekeeping uniform carefully folded on the back seat. "You work in cleaning services?" he asked casually. Maria nodded, a blush of shame coloring her cheeks. "3 jobs, actually. Cleaning during the day, gas station attendant at night, and on weekends I do babysitting gigs." "And the little ones?" "They stay with my elderly neighbor. I pay what I can, but she's a blessing. Since my husband—" Maria stopped, unable to complete the sentence. Will waited patiently. "He was deported 6 months ago," she finally continued. "We're fighting to bring him back, but lawyers are expensive, and without him, well, you've seen how we are." Will observed the twins playing near the car, their laughter incongruent with the gravity of the situation. "Do you have a phone?" he suddenly asked. Maria hesitated before handing over her old phone with a cracked screen. Will quickly typed something and returned the device. "That's my personal number. And my lawyer's. Call him tomorrow, tell him you spoke with me. Your immigration case, he'll take care of it." Maria shook her head, incredulous. "I can't. Why would you do this?" Will's smile disappeared, replaced by a serious expression rarely seen in his interviews. "When I was young in Philadelphia, my mother went through tough times. There were days when we didn't know if we'd have dinner. A stranger helped once when they didn't have to. I never forgot." He looked at the twins, now examining a beetle on the asphalt with fascination. "Besides," he added with a recovered smile, "looks like I have 2 new fans to impress." The next day, precisely at 10 in the morning, Maria's phone rang. It was Will Smith's lawyer's office, confirming an appointment for that afternoon. Maria could hardly believe this was really happening. Meanwhile, the small 2-bedroom apartment in the Los Angeles suburbs was in an uproar. The twins couldn't stop talking about the man in black who saved their birthday cake. Maria had explained that it was just a coincidence, that Will Smith had probably already forgotten about them, continuing with his Hollywood star life. But at 3 in the afternoon, when the doorbell rang, Maria opened the door to find not just Will Smith, but his wife Jada and daughter Willow as well, all carrying presents wrapped in colorful paper. "Happy birthday," announced Will, his smile lighting up the dilapidated hallway of the building. The twins were paralyzed for a moment before erupting in shouts of joy. Sophia ran to hug Will's leg while Miguel observed Willow with shy admiration. "You didn't have to," said Maria, tears already flowing again. "Oh, but we wanted to," replied Jada, entering the apartment with a box of sweets. "Will hasn't stopped talking about these two since yesterday." For the next 2 hours, the small apartment was filled with more joy than its walls had ever witnessed. Will told behind-the-scenes stories from his films, making the twins roll with laughter at his impressions of aliens and robots. Willow sang "Happy Birthday" with a voice that gave Maria goosebumps, and Jada charmed everyone with her welcoming and genuine presence. When it was time for the cake, Will insisted on lighting the candles himself, making a small ceremony that made the twins feel like real movie stars. "Make a wish," he said, as the little ones prepared to blow out the candles. "And remember, the best wishes are those you also work to make come true." Miguel and Sophia closed their eyes tightly, their expressions intensely concentrated before blowing out the candles together. Later, while the children were busy with their new toys, Will called Maria for a private conversation. "I spoke with my lawyer," he said quietly. "He thinks your husband's case has good chances, mainly because you have children born here." Maria nodded, trying to contain the hope growing in her chest. "How long?" she asked. "It won't be quick," admitted Will. "Maybe a few months. But he's good at what he does." He paused, seeming to choose his next words carefully. "I also talked with some friends. I have a foundation that helps families in situations like yours. We'd like to offer scholarships for the twins, for a private school nearby." Maria began to protest, but Will raised a hand. "It's not charity, Maria. It's investment. These children have potential. They just need a fair chance." His eyes met hers, serious and determined. "And you deserve a chance too. There's a professional training program linked to the foundation. You could study, get a better job. Stop working 3 different places." Will's words fell like raindrops in a desert. Maria had spent so long just surviving that she barely remembered what it was like to dream of something better. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked, her voice breaking. "You don't even know us." Will smiled, that sincere smile that rarely appeared in his polished interviews. "Because I can. Because I should. And because someday, I hope Miguel and Sophia will do the same for someone else when they have the opportunity." 6 months passed. The small apartment in the suburbs was empty, the pencil marks on the wall recording the twins' growth being the only testimony that a family had lived there. Maria now worked as an administrative assistant at a technology company, studying business administration at night. The twins attended a school with special programs for gifted children. Miguel had revealed an exceptional talent for mathematics, while Sophia showed impressive skills with languages. The greatest miracle, however, happened on a rainy October afternoon. Maria was in the new apartment, more spacious and close to the children's school, when the doorbell rang. Upon opening the door, her heart nearly stopped. There, with a simple suitcase and teary eyes, stood Antonio, her husband. Behind him, smiling discreetly, was Will Smith's lawyer. "We did it," said the lawyer simply, before withdrawing to give the family privacy. The twins' shout of joy at seeing their father echoed through the hallway. Antonio hugged his children tightly, unable to believe how much they had grown in just 1 year apart. When he finally embraced Maria, he whispered in her ear, How did you manage to pay for all this?" Maria smiled through her tears. "We have a guardian angel, and one day, I'll tell you the whole story." That night, as the reunited family slept peacefully for the first time in over a year, Maria's phone vibrated with a message. "Heard the family is complete again. Congratulations. Just a reminder, dinner at my house, Sunday. Jada is making her famous roast chicken. The twins can't stop talking about the basketball game in the backyard. Bring Antonio. Can hardly wait to meet him. Will." Maria smiled at the phone, remembering that day at the supermarket that changed everything. How a simple act of kindness had transformed into something so profound and lasting. 2 years later, Maria was nervous as she adjusted Antonio's tie. It was his first day as manager in the logistics department of a large company, a job he would never have gotten without Will's recommendation. "Do you think we'll ever be able to repay him?" asked Antonio, while arranging the borrowed suit. Maria smiled, thinking about the last 2 years. About the monthly dinners at the Smith's house that had become a tradition. About the acting classes Miguel was taking with Will, revealing a surprising talent. About the studio sessions where Sophia accompanied Willow, discovering her own passion for music. "We're already giving back," she replied. "Remember that family at church? The newcomers from Guatemala?" Antonio nodded. They had adopted the family, helping with food, clothing, and guidance to navigate the complicated immigration system. "Will once told me that true generosity is a circle, not a line." She adjusted the tie one last time and stepped back to admire her husband. "Besides," she added with a smile, "he hates when we try to thank him directly. Says the best way to thank him is simply to pass it forward." When Maria and Will's story finally reached the media, almost 3 years after that meeting at the supermarket, it wasn't because Will Smith publicized it or sought recognition. It was because Maria, now a business administration graduate working as a manager at an immigrant support foundation, was interviewed by a local newspaper. When asked what inspired her to dedicate her life to helping other immigrants, Maria told the story. How a casual encounter with Will Smith had transformed into a lasting friendship and a mutual commitment to make a difference. The story quickly went viral, not for the details of Will's involvement, which Maria intentionally kept vague out of respect for the actor's privacy, but for the inspiring power of the message. In response to the media coverage, Will Smith published only a brief statement. "What I did for Maria and her family was less significant than what they did for me. They reminded me of the transformative power of genuine human connection, without agendas or expectations. If this story inspires other people to reach out to someone in need, then that's the real impact that matters." 5 years after that encounter at the supermarket, Maria was sitting in the front row of a packed auditorium, watching with pride as Miguel, now 9 years old, received first prize in a national mathematics competition. Beside her, Antonio held Sophia's hand, who was anxiously awaiting her turn to perform in the music competition that would follow. In one of the last rows, wearing a discreet cap and dark glasses, Will Smith watched in silence, his face illuminated by a smile of satisfaction. Jada, seated beside him, squeezed his hand when Miguel mentioned in his acceptance speech, "A guardian angel who appeared when we needed him most." After the ceremony, while families gathered in the lobby for celebrations, Will approached Maria discreetly. "He's brilliant," he commented, referring to Miguel. "That theorem he solved. My goodness, I didn't even understand the question, let alone the answer." Maria laughed, her eyes shining with pride. "He keeps saying he's going to be a famous scientist someday. Wants to discover how to time travel." "And he will," replied Will with conviction. "With that mind and that determination, I don't doubt it one bit." They observed in silence as Miguel and Sophia animatedly conversed with other competitors, completely at ease in an environment that, 5 years earlier, would have been unthinkable for them. "You know," said Maria after a moment, "I always wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been at that supermarket that day." Will reflected for a moment. "I believe you would have found a way. People like you always do." Maria shook her head, more serious. "Maybe. But how much time would we have lost? How many opportunities would have passed? How many sleepless nights, working 3 jobs?" She paused. "You didn't just help us, Will. You gave us time. The most precious good of all." At that moment, Antonio approached with the twins. Sophia ran to hug Will, completely at ease with the man who had become a constant presence in her life. "Uncle Will, you're staying to see me play, aren't you?" she asked anxiously. "I wouldn't miss it for anything," he replied, exchanging a knowing look with Maria. Both knew he had postponed filming an important scene to be present on this day. The following night, Maria was flipping through a photo album when she found one that made her pause. It was from the twins' first birthday after meeting Will, that surreal day when a Hollywood superstar appeared at their small apartment with gifts and cake. In the photo, Will was sitting on the floor with Miguel and Sofia in his lap, all three making funny faces for the camera. What most caught Maria's attention, however, wasn't the faces, but Will's eyes. There was in them a genuine joy, different from what he displayed on movie screens. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Lucia, the Guatemalan mother her family had been helping over the past years. "Maria," said Lucia, her voice trembling with emotion. "We did it. The judge granted us asylum. We won't be deported." Maria felt tears of joy spring to her eyes. "That's wonderful, Lucia. I'm so happy for you." "It's all thanks to you and Antonio," continued Lucia, "the lawyer you introduced us to. We could never have paid for someone like that." Maria smiled, remembering how Will had insisted that his lawyer take Lucia's case at no cost. "Just doing our part to pass it forward," she replied. After hanging up, Maria sent a message to Will, sharing the good news about Lucia. The response came almost instantly. "See? The circle continues. Proud of you all. P.S. Sofia crushed it at the recital. I have a producer friend who wants to talk with her when she's older." 7 years after the supermarket encounter, Maria finally completed her dream. The Circles of Hope Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping immigrant families find stability in the United States, opened its doors in a small office in downtown Los Angeles. On the day of the inauguration, Maria was surprised to see a crowd of reporters and photographers gathering outside. She hadn't made any major announcement to the press. The reason soon became clear when a black limousine stopped in front of the building. Will and Jada Smith emerged, followed by several other Hollywood celebrities that Maria instantly recognized. All wore t-shirts with the foundation's logo. "What is this?" asked Maria when Will approached to hug her. "A little boost to get started," he replied with a smile. "I hope you don't mind. I told your story to some friends, and they were as inspired as I was." During the inauguration ceremony, Will climbed onto the small improvised stage to give a speech. Reporters raised their microphones, eager. "I'm often asked why I got involved with the Circles of Hope Foundation," he began. "The answer is simple. Because I met Maria Gonzalez." He looked directly at Maria, who was at the edge of the crowd, trying to contain her tears. 7 years ago, I saw a mother counting coins in a supermarket, trying to decide which basic necessities she could leave behind. I saw 2 children who didn't understand why they couldn't have a birthday cake. And in that moment, I realized how vulnerable and interdependent we all are. Will paused, his voice choked with emotion. The little I did for Maria and her family was simply what any decent human being would do upon seeing someone in need. The extraordinary thing was what Maria did next. She transformed her own struggle into a commitment to help others. She took her pain and turned it into purpose. Camera flashes fired incessantly as Will continued. This foundation isn't about charity. It's about dignity, about removing unfair barriers, about recognizing that talents and dreams know no borders or immigration status. He gestured toward the building behind him. In these offices, families will find legal assistance, professional guidance, educational support, and, most importantly, a community that believes in them. And all this because a brave mother decided that her story of struggle would not end with her, but would transform into hope for others. 10 years after that fateful day at the supermarket, Maria was nervous again. This time, however, it wasn't because of bills she couldn't pay or fear of losing her apartment. It was because she was about to step onto the stage of the Dolby Theater in Hollywood to receive the humanitarian award granted by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. The nomination had been a complete surprise. The documentary Circles, which told the story of her foundation and followed the journey of 5 immigrant families who had received support to rebuild their lives, had been an unexpected success, earning critical acclaim and drawing attention to the cause. Backstage, minutes before the ceremony began, Will Smith appeared wearing an elegant black tuxedo. "Nervous?" he asked with a smile. "Terrified," admitted Maria. "I've never spoken to so many people." "Just tell your story," advised Will. "It's the most powerful one I know." Maria nodded, adjusting the red dress Jada had lent her for the occasion. "Will," she said suddenly, "I never had the chance to ask. Why were you in that supermarket that day? It's not exactly a place where one would expect to find someone like you." Will smiled thoughtfully. "I was researching for a role. I wanted to understand how ordinary people live, observe their interactions, their daily challenges." He paused, his gaze distant, as if reliving that moment. "I saw you coming in with the twins. I saw how you tried to maintain dignity while facing an impossible situation. And I realized that no role research could teach me what I learned just by watching you for 5 minutes." The signal sounded, indicating that the ceremony was about to begin. "It's time," said Will, offering his arm to Maria. "Ready to inspire the world?" Maria took a deep breath, thinking of all the lives her foundation had touched over the last decade. She thought of Miguel, now studying physics at MIT on a full scholarship, and of Sofia, who had just recorded her first album. She thought of Antonio, who now directed a mentoring program for young immigrants. And she thought of the hundreds of other families who had found hope through the foundation's work. "Ready," she replied, taking Will's arm with confidence. When she stepped onto the stage minutes later, under the spotlight and before an audience of some of the world's most influential people, Maria Gonzalez was no longer the desperate woman from the supermarket. She was a force for change, a symbol of how a single act of kindness can trigger waves of transformation that reach far beyond what one can imagine. And as she began her speech, she saw Will Smith in the front row, applauding with genuine pride in his eyes. In that moment, Maria understood that the true story wasn't about a superstar saving a family in distress. It was about how human beings, regardless of their fame or wealth, have the power to transform lives when they choose to see beyond appearances and extend a hand to one another. The story of Will Smith and Maria Gonzalez wasn't just about generosity. It was a reminder that small moments of human connection can trigger silent revolutions of hope, creating circles of kindness that continue to expand long after the initial act is forgotten. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all, that our acts of kindness are never really small, for we never know how far their ripples can reach.